The red sun hung low over the dying world of Kepler 442b, casting strange shadows across what had once been a thriving colony. The Zephyrians had built their homes from living materials that grew like plants, creating beautiful cities that glowed with soft blue light. But now those same buildings were turning black and crumbling, their glow fading like dying stars. In the largest dome at the center of the colony, Elder Vexthara moved slowly between the sick beds. Her 6 legs, once strong and steady, now trembled with each step. The plague had been spreading for 3 weeks, and already half her people were gone. The others lay dying, their natural light flickering weakly under their shells. The Zephyrians were peaceful beings who had never hurt anyone. For 200 years, they had mined rare crystals from this distant world, trading them fairly with other species across the galaxy. They built no weapons, fought no wars, and asked for nothing more than to be left in peace. Their only remarkable trait was their ability to grow living technology, ships that could heal themselves, buildings that cleaned the air, medicines that grew from seeds. But none of their amazing biotechnology could stop this new sickness. It had started with the miners who worked deepest underground. They came back complaining of headaches and dizziness. Within days, they were dead. The disease spread through their cities like wildfire, attacking the nervous system and shutting down their bodies piece by piece. The infected would lose their ability to glow, then their motor functions, and finally their lives. Dr. Kexmora, the colony's chief healer, had tried everything. She grew new medicines, adjusted the air filters, even attempted to modify their people's biology to resist the plague. Nothing worked. If anything, the disease seemed to adapt to each new treatment, becoming stronger and more deadly. We must send word to the galaxy, Elder Vexthara had decided 2 weeks ago. Surely someone will help us. The first message went to the Altarian Republic, the most advanced medical civilization in known space. Their response came within hours: quarantine protocols must be observed. The risk to our population is unacceptable. Request denied. The Zephyrians were confused but not discouraged. Perhaps the Altarians were simply being cautious. They tried the Vegan Trade Confederacy next, thinking that their long trading relationship would count for something. Economic impact analysis shows significant risk to trade routes, came the reply. Cannot justify medical intervention. Suggest seeking assistance elsewhere. Elsewhere turned out to be nowhere. The militaristic Rigel Empire ignored their messages completely. The Crystal Hierarchs claimed they were too busy with internal affairs. The Machine Collective stated that organic diseases were outside their area of expertise. One by one, every major civilization in the galaxy found reasons to refuse. Some responses were polite but firm. Others were coldly clinical. A few were brutally honest about viewing the Zephyrians as expendable. But the result was always the same: no help was coming. The final blow arrived 5 days ago in the form of an official declaration from the Galactic Council. The message was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every ship in space would receive it. By order of the Galactic Council, the Kepler 442 system is hereby declared a contaminated zone. All traffic to and from the system is strictly prohibited. Any vessel attempting to enter or leave will be considered in violation of interstellar law and subject to immediate detention or destruction. With those words, the Zephyrians' fate was sealed. They were alone. Elder Vexthara paused beside a young worker named Kixandra, who had been one of their best crystal singers. The girl's breathing was shallow and labored, her shell dull and cracked. In her delirium, she called out for her mother, who had died 3 days earlier. "Why won't they help us?" whispered Dr. Kexmora, joining the elder beside the dying girl. "We've never harmed anyone. We trade fairly, we share our knowledge freely, we ask for nothing but the right to exist." The elder's compound eyes reflected the dim emergency lighting. "Perhaps that is precisely why," she said softly. "We are useful for our crystals and our biotechnology, but we are not essential. We are not powerful enough to threaten them or rich enough to buy their assistance." Through the transparent walls of the dome, they could see the other settlements scattered across the valley. Most were completely dark now, their inhabitants either dead or evacuated to the central colony in a desperate last stand. The beautiful gardens that had once surrounded each building were withering, the living architecture itself seeming to sense the approaching end. "How many are left?" asked Dr. Kexmora. "Perhaps 300, the elder replied. "Maybe fewer by morning." They had started with over 10,000. 3 weeks ago, this had been a thriving community with children playing in the biogardens, workers singing as they harvested crystals, and families gathering for the evening light dance that was their most sacred tradition. Now there was only silence and the smell of decay. The communication array crackled to life one more time, broadcasting their automated distress signal into the empty void. It was a futile gesture, everyone who might have helped had already refused. But they kept broadcasting anyway, hoping against hope that someone, somewhere, might still care enough to answer. Elder Vexthara felt her own light beginning to dim. Soon she too would join her people in the darkness. The last Zephyrian colony would become another footnote in galactic history, a minor tragedy quickly forgotten by civilizations too busy with their own affairs to mourn the passing of a peaceful species. In the growing darkness, she whispered a prayer to the ancient crystal spirits, asking not for salvation, that hope was long gone, but simply that their death might mean something, that their story might serve as a warning to others about the cost of indifference. The red sun set over Kepler 442b, and the dying continued. Captain Lee Hyun stared at the flickering display screen in the cramped bridge of the medical ship Mercer's Hand. The vessel was nothing impressive by galactic standards, a converted cargo hauler with medical equipment bolted wherever it would fit. The crew quarters were too small, the engine made strange noises, and the food recycler had been broken for 3 months. But it was home to 37 humans who had volunteered to bring medical aid to the Outer Rim worlds. "Sir, we're picking up those distress signals again," said Communications Officer Park Mina from her station near the back of the bridge. She was barely 22, fresh out of the Space Academy, with short black hair and worried eyes that seemed too old for her face. The automated messages from the Zephyrian colony. They're getting weaker." Lee rubbed his tired eyes. They had been traveling for 6 weeks, moving from one crisis to another. A mining accident on Tau Ceti. A food poisoning outbreak on New Sol Station. A reactor leak on the cargo freighter Golden Dream. Always small problems that the big civilizations ignored, always people that nobody else cared about. "What do we know about the situation?" he asked. Dr. Kim Jae looked up from his medical reports. He was older than the rest of the crew, maybe 50, with gray hair and hands that never stopped moving. "From what I can gather from their transmissions, it's some kind of plague. Fast-acting, high mortality rate. Their own medical technology can't stop it." "And nobody else will help them?" asked First Officer Cho Bin. He was Lee's oldest friend, a careful man who always thought before speaking. "The Galactic Council declared their system off-limits," Park Mina replied. "Full quarantine. They're saying the risk is too high." Lee stood up and walked to the small window that showed the stars streaming past. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for 50 years now, but they were still treated like children. Too emotional, the other species said. Too quick to act without thinking. Too willing to risk everything for strangers. Maybe that was true. But Lee remembered growing up on Earth, hearing stories about the old days when humans had no choice but to help each other survive. When a village was in trouble, you didn't ask if it was profitable to help. You just helped. "How far are we from their system?" he asked. "About 4 days at maximum speed," replied Navigator Song Minute, a quiet woman who rarely spoke unless asked a direct question. "Sir," Cho Bin said carefully, "if we go there, we could be arrested by Galactic Council forces. Our ship could be impounded. We could all end up in prison." Lee turned back to face his crew. These were good people, doctors, nurses, engineers, pilots who had all chosen to serve in the medical corps instead of taking easier jobs on the inner worlds. They had families back home, dreams and plans for the future. "I can't order anyone to do this," he said. "This isn't our mission. It's not even legal. But there are people dying out there, and everyone else has decided they're not worth saving." Dr. Kim Jae was the first to speak. "I didn't become a doctor to turn away from people who need help. The Hippocratic Oath doesn't have an exception for inconvenient patients," added Dr. Yoon Hana, the ship's young xenobiologist. She had joined the crew only 6 months ago, eager to study alien life forms and help bridge the gap between species. One by one, the crew voiced their agreement. Even the engineers and maintenance staff wanted to help. Lee felt a familiar warmth in his chest, the same feeling he got whenever he remembered why he had joined the medical service in the first place. "All right then," he said. "Park Mina, send a message to Medical Command. Tell them we're investigating a potential epidemic and may be out of contact for a while. Don't mention where we're really going." "Yes sir," she replied, already working at her console. "Sung Minute, plot a course for the Kepler 442 system. Best speed. Dr. Kim, I want you to review everything we know about Zephyrian biology. What supplies do we have that might help?" The older doctor was already pulling up files on his tablet. "Not much, sir. Our medical supplies are designed for humans and the few alien species we normally treat. Zephyrians have completely different biochemistry. but our adaptive treatment protocols might be able to work with what they have. What do you mean? Asked Dr. Yoon. Human medicine isn't as advanced as what the Altarians or vegans use, Dr. Kim explained. But it's flexible. We're used to working with limited resources, making do with what we have. We adapt treatments in real time based on what works. The big civilizations rely on perfect solutions from their advanced medical computers. When those don't work, they give up. Lee nodded. He had seen this before in their missions to the Outer Rim. Human doctors would try dozens of different approaches until something worked, while alien medics would run their standard protocols and declare patients untreatable if they didn't respond. How long until we reach them? He asked. 3 days, 18 hours at current speed, Song Minute replied. Then we'd better get ready. Dr. Kim, start preparing emergency medical protocols. Dr. Yoon, see what you can find about Zephyrian biology in our databases. Everyone else, check your equipment and get some rest. We're going to need all our strength. As the Mercer's hand changed course toward the Forbidden System, Lee couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading into something much bigger than a simple medical emergency. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations had all turned their backs on the Zephyrians. Soon, humanity would show them what they had missed. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could change everything. The Mercer's hand dropped out of hyperspace above Kepler 442b, and the sight that greeted them was heartbreaking. What should have been a world dotted with glowing cities now looked like a collection of dying embers. Most of the Zephyrian settlements were completely dark, their bioluminescent structures withered and black against the red landscape. My God, whispered Dr. Yoon Hannah as she stared at the scanner readings. The biosignatures are so weak. There can't be many left alive down there. Captain Lee felt his stomach tighten. They had pushed the engines hard for 4 days, hoping to arrive in time to make a difference. Now he wondered if they were too late. I'm detecting life signs in the central colony, reported Park Mina. Maybe 300 individuals, but the readings are very faint. Dr. Kim Jae was already preparing his medical kit. Captain, we need to get down there immediately. Every hour we delay means more deaths. Take Dr. Yoon and Sergeant Nam Woo with you, Lee ordered. I want you to have security, just in case. And take all the medical supplies we can spare. 30 minutes later, the shuttle touched down in what had once been a beautiful garden plaza. Now it was a graveyard of blackened trees and withered flowers. The air smelled of decay and sickness, and the only sounds were the weak calls for help coming from the central dome. Dr. Kim led the team inside, where they found a scene that would haunt their dreams for years to come. Hundreds of Zephyrians lay on makeshift beds, their natural glow so dim it was barely visible. Many were already dead, their bodies covered with simple cloths. The survivors moved like ghosts, too weak to do more than tend to the dying. An elderly Zephyrian approached them slowly. Her shell was cracked and dull, her movements painful to watch. You came, she whispered through a translation device. But why? All the others, they said we were not worth the risk. Dr. Kim knelt beside her, pulling out his medical scanner. I'm Dr. Kim Jae from the human medical ship Mercer's Hand. We're here to help. What's your name? I am Elder Vexthara. But there is no hope left. Too many have died. The sickness, it cannot be stopped. We'll see about that, Dr. Kim said gently. He ran the scanner over her body, watching as it analyzed her alien biology. Dr. Yoon, I need you to start collecting samples from the infected. We need to understand what we're fighting. Dr. Yoon Hannah had never worked with Zephyrian biology before, but she threw herself into the task with determination. Their medical databases had some basic information about the species, but nothing detailed enough to develop treatments. She would have to learn as she went, studying their blood chemistry and nervous system while people died around her. The human medical team worked for 18 hours straight, moving from patient to patient, taking readings, trying different combinations of human medicines mixed with salvaged Zephyrian biotechnology. Nothing seemed to work. The plague was unlike anything they had ever seen, attacking the nervous system in ways that their equipment could barely detect. This is impossible, Dr. Yoon said after another treatment failed. Their biology is so different from anything we know. It's like trying to fix a machine when you don't know what any of the parts do. But Dr. Kim refused to give up. He had learned medicine during the resource wars on Earth, where doctors had to improvise treatments with whatever materials they could find. We're thinking about this wrong, he said. We're trying to cure an alien disease with human medicine. But what if we use human adaptability with Zephyrian tools? He began experimenting with the colony's biosynthesis equipment, machines that could grow living medicines tailored to specific patients. The Zephyrians had used them to create treatments for their own diseases, but they required precise programming that was beyond the dying colonists' remaining strength. The machines need detailed biological data to work, explained Dr. Kexmora, the colony's last surviving healer. She was barely able to stand, her own infection advancing rapidly. But our computers, they were programmed for known diseases. This plague is something new. Then we'll teach them, Dr. Kim said. He connected his portable medical computer to the biosynthesis machine, feeding it data from his scans of infected patients. It was a desperate gamble. Human medical protocols were designed for human biology, not alien nervous systems. The first attempts failed completely. The biosynthesizer produced medicines that were useless or even harmful to Zephyrian physiology. But Dr. Kim kept adjusting the parameters, working with Dr. Yoon to find combinations that might work. On the second day, Park Mina fell sick. She had been working closely with the Zephyrians, helping to organize the medical supplies and coordinate communication with the ship. The plague had somehow jumped species, adapting itself to human biology. This changes everything, Dr. Yoon said as she ran tests on the infected communication officer. If it can affect humans, then we can use her as a test subject for treatments that might work on both species. It was a terrible decision to make, but Park Mina volunteered immediately. If my getting sick helps you save these people, then it's worth it, she said, even as the disease began to affect her nervous system. Using Park Mina's human biology as a bridge, Dr. Kim and Dr. Yoon finally began to make progress. They developed a treatment that combined human adaptive immune boosters with Zephyrian neural regeneration compounds. It wasn't a perfect cure, but it slowed the disease enough for the patient's own immune systems to fight back. The first Zephyrian to recover was a young worker named Kixandra. When her natural glow returned, flickering weakly but steadily, both species wept with relief. They had found hope in the darkest hour. The warning came without ceremony, crackling through the communication system of the Mercer's hand like a death sentence. Captain Lee Hyun was reviewing medical reports from the surface when the bridge suddenly filled with the harsh voice of an Altarian military commander. Attention human vessel. This is Admiral Varthek of the Altarian Third Fleet. You are in direct violation of Galactic Council Quarantine Protocol 7 Alpha. You have exactly 1 standard hour to withdraw from this system, or we will be forced to destroy your ship. Lee rushed to the bridge, where his crew was staring at the tactical display in shock. 3 massive Altarian destroyers hung in space just outside the system, their weapons already powering up. Each ship was 10 times larger than the Mercer's hand and carried enough firepower to vaporize a small moon. How long have they been there? Lee asked. They just dropped out of hyperspace, replied Navigator Song Minute, her voice tight with fear. They must have been tracking us since we left the last system. First Officer Cho Bin pulled up the ship's defensive systems, then shook his head. Sir, we have nothing that could even scratch their shields. If they decide to fire, we'll be dead before we know what hit us. Down on the surface, Dr. Kim Jae's voice crackled over the communication system. Captain, what's happening up there? We're picking up massive energy signatures on our sensors. We have company, Lee replied grimly. The Altarians want us to leave. Now. Sir, we can't leave now. We're so close to a breakthrough. Give us just 12 more hours and we can have a stable cure ready for mass production. Lee stared at the tactical display, watching as the Altarian ships moved into attack formation. He had always known this moment might come, but somehow he had hoped they could finish their work before anyone noticed. Open a channel to the Altarian fleet, he ordered. Admiral Varthek's face appeared on the main screen. He was tall and thin like all Altarians, with pale blue skin and cold silver eyes that showed no emotion. His uniform was perfectly pressed, every decoration in its proper place. Captain Lee Hyun of the human medical vessel Mercer's hand, he said in a voice like ice. Your presence here is not only illegal but extremely dangerous. The contamination risk to the rest of the galaxy is unacceptable. We're saving lives, Lee replied simply. The Zephyrians were dying, and nobody else would help them. The Galactic Council made a careful decision based on scientific evidence, Admiral Varthek continued. The risk of this plague spreading to other worlds far outweighs the value of preserving one small colony. Your emotional species simply cannot understand the mathematics of acceptable losses. Lee felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. Acceptable to who? The Zephyrians didn't get a vote in this decision. They are a minor species with limited strategic value. The Altarian Republic alone has 3 trillion citizens. The Vegan Confederacy has 5 trillion. The loss of a few 100,000 Zephyrians is regrettable, but it cannot justify risking billions of lives. And what if you're wrong? Lee asked. What if we found a cure that works? What if all those people died for nothing? For the first time, Admiral Varthak's expression changed slightly. Even if that were true, which our medical experts assure me is impossible given human technological limitations, the risk was too great to take. You should have left this to qualified personnel. Qualified personnel who refused to come, Lee shot back. Qualified personnel who decided these people weren't worth saving. The Altarian Admiral's face hardened again. You have 30 minutes to withdraw, Captain. I will not warn you again. The channel closed, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Lee looked around at his crew, seeing fear in their faces but also something else, determination. These were people who had volunteered to serve in the medical corps, who had chosen to help others instead of taking safe, comfortable jobs in the inner systems. Options? He asked quietly. We could run, suggested Song Minute. Try to jump to hyperspace before they can lock onto us. They'd catch us, Chobin replied. Those destroyers are much faster than we are. We could surrender, offered young Ensign Park Jin, who had barely spoken since joining the crew. Turn ourselves in and hope they show mercy. Lee shook his head. If we leave now, the Zephyrians die. All of them. And the cure dies with them. From the surface, Dr. Kim's voice burst over the communication system again. Captain. We've got it. The cure is working. We've successfully treated 15 patients in the last hour, and they're all showing complete recovery. The bridge crew exchanged glances. They had done it. Against all odds, with limited resources and no support from the galactic community, they had found a way to save an entire species. Dr. Kim, Lee said slowly, can you transmit the cure data to our main computer? Already done, sir. Full treatment protocols, synthesis instructions, everything we've learned. Lee turned to Park Mina at the communication station. Mina, I need you to prepare a broad-spectrum transmission. Every frequency, every communication network in the galaxy. She looked confused. Sir. If they're going to stop us, they're going to have to destroy us, Lee said quietly. But they can't destroy information that's already been broadcast across the galaxy. Understanding dawned on her face. Broadcasting the cure to everyone. Every hospital, every research station, every medical facility in known space, Lee confirmed. Let's see them try to suppress that. Outside, the Altarian weapons finished charging. Time was running out. 6 months after the standoff above Kepler 442b, Captain Lee Hyun stood in the Grand Council chamber of the rebuilt Zephyrian capital. The room was alive with soft blue light, its walls made of living crystal that pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Through the transparent ceiling, he could see dozens of ships in orbit, not warships this time, but medical vessels, research craft, and cargo haulers bringing supplies and aid. Elder Vexthara approached him slowly, her shell now bright and healthy, glowing with the natural bioluminescence that had once seemed lost forever. Captain Lee, she said through her translator, the final medical reports have arrived. The cure you broadcast has been successfully used on 17 different Zephyrian colonies. Over 2 million of my people are alive because of what you did. Lee nodded, but his expression remained serious. How many did we lose before the cure reached them? Too many, the elder admitted. But without your sacrifice, we would have lost everyone. The word sacrifice still felt strange to Lee. The Mercer's hand had been destroyed that day, vaporized by Altarian weapons just seconds after Park Mina had finished broadcasting the cure data across the galaxy. But somehow, incredibly, they had all survived. At the last moment, a Zephyrian rescue ship had beamed them to safety, using technology that the Altarians hadn't known existed. Dr. Kim Jae entered the chamber, looking tired but satisfied. In the months since the crisis, he had become something of a legend in medical circles across the galaxy. The latest reports from the Humanitarian Alliance Medical Corps, he said, handing Lee a datapad. We've responded to 23 crisis situations in the past month. Everything from plague outbreaks to industrial accidents. Lee smiled as he read through the list. The Humanitarian Alliance had grown far beyond what anyone had imagined possible. What had started as a simple partnership between humans and Zephyrians now included over 60 species, mostly smaller civilizations that had been ignored or dismissed by the major galactic powers. The Moss Weavers have offered to share their agricultural technology, Dr. Kim continued. And the Crystal Singers want to teach us their healing songs. It's amazing what happens when species actually cooperate instead of competing. Dr. Yoon Hanna joined them, carrying a small device that glowed with soft green light. "The biosynthesis chambers are ready for the next phase of testing," she announced. "Combining Zephyrian biotechnology with human adaptive medicine is producing results we never dreamed possible." The combination had indeed been revolutionary. Human flexibility and determination paired with Zephyrian living technology was creating medical advances that amazed even the most advanced civilizations. Diseases that had been considered incurable were now treatable. Injuries that would have been permanent could be healed completely. "What about the Galactic Council?" Lee asked. "Are they still trying to shut us down?" Elder Vexthara's light dimmed slightly. "They have concerns. Admiral Varthek has been replaced, but the Altarians are still pushing for sanctions against any world that joins our alliance. They claim we are destabilizing galactic order." "Maybe we are," said a new voice. Commander Park Mina entered the chamber, now wearing the uniform of the Alliance Medical Corps. She had recovered completely from the plague and chosen to stay with the humanitarian mission rather than return to regular space fleet duty. But maybe that's exactly what this galaxy needs. Through the crystal walls, they could see representatives from dozens of species working together in the research labs below. Crystalline beings whose bodies rang like bells when they moved. Furry creatures that communicated through scent patterns. Aquatic species that had to wear special suits to survive in the dry air. All of them united by a simple idea that the major civilizations had forgotten, that every life had value. "The big powers are starting to pay attention," Park Mina continued. "3 vegan trade worlds have quietly asked about joining the alliance. Even some Altarian colonies are sending medical data to our research centers." Lee walked to the window and looked out at the bustling spaceport below. 6 months ago, this world had been dead, abandoned by everyone who might have helped. Now it was the heart of a growing movement that was changing how the galaxy thought about cooperation and compassion. "Sir," said Dr. Kim, joining him at the window, "do you ever regret what we did? We could all be safely back on Earth right now, with normal careers and quiet lives." Lee thought about the question for a long moment. They had lost their ship, risked their lives, and made enemies of some of the most powerful civilizations in space. By any reasonable measure, they should have stayed away from Kepler 442b and let the Zephyrians die quietly. "Look down there," he said finally, pointing to the research complex below. "Yesterday, they found a cure for Rigelian bone rot. Last week, they developed a new treatment for stellar radiation poisoning. Every day, they are solving problems that the big civilizations said were impossible." He turned back to face his friends and allies. "We came here to save one species from a plague. Instead, we started something that's saving lives across the entire galaxy. How could I regret that?" Elder Vexthara's bioluminescence brightened. "In our oldest stories," she said softly, "we speak of the Great Light, a time when all species will work together to push back the darkness. For 2,000 years, it was just a legend. But perhaps legends sometimes come true." Outside, the ships of the Humanitarian Alliance prepared for their next mission. Somewhere in the galaxy, people were suffering and dying while the great powers calculated profit margins and acceptable losses. But now they were no longer alone. The humans had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten, that the greatest strength came not from advanced weapons or superior technology, but from the simple refusal to abandon those in need. In a universe that often seemed cold and uncaring, they had lit a flame of hope that was spreading from world to world.